We've got a lot to talk about, and we're going to be getting to that David Ignatius column. David went to Kyiv. A tough column, tough questions that the people of Ukraine are asking themselves right now. We'll get to that in a little bit. First, Donnie, speaking of branding, I'd love to pass by you this latest poll. It came out yesterday. The New York Post caught my attention reading the newspaper of record for Morning Joe, the New York Post. And they ran this. It was a Marquette Law poll. Very good poll. Has Joe Biden ahead of Donald Trump among likely voters, which is the voter group you look to, 51 to 49%. So you got that, right? Now look at the issues and where the parties stand on the issues. The Democratic brand is so battered right now. On inflation, Trump beating Biden by 23%. On the economy, it's the economy, stupid? Not always, because Trump is beating Biden on the economy 24%. On immigration and border security, 24%. On creating jobs, 19%. On foreign relations, 5%. Then it gets tighter. Biden wins on Medicare, Social Security, on abortion policy, and on climate change. But you look at those top issues, inflation, the economy, creating jobs. Carville famously said, it's the economy, stupid. And yet you look at, again, the overall, Donnie, we can get off that slide now. Thank you. You look at the overall, and Biden's ahead. And this is what Republicans on the Hill understand. This is what Republicans off the Hill understand. This is what Republican fundraisers understand. That the Democratic brand is actually more beaten up than the Republican brand if you look at the issues. But you look at a Gallup poll that shows the same thing here, and then you see that both parties right now are loathed. 56, 57, 58% of Americans disapprove of both parties. So it just seems to me, again, the Republican brand is so dragged down by Donald Trump. And yet they just don't seem to get it. The base doesn't seem to get it.
I'd be amazing, to see we've seen polls also in the past with Nikki Haley where she's up 5 points, and some of the other candidates. If they had anybody else there, they would be way, way up. It's not even a question. The issue becomes, what do the Democrats do? And I think the answer is
why is their brand so bad, Donnie? I mean, you look. I understand Bidenomics wasn't the way to go, but I could show you a lot of things that show that our military is stronger relative to the rest of the world than ever before. We get, once again, leading in NATO. NATO is expanding stronger than ever. Jobs, you want a job? There's a job out there for you. What's happening? Is inflation, which seems to be going down, is inflation really that much of a drag on Biden and the economy?
It's two things. I think it's, from an issue point of view, I do think inflation is the one. It's hard to find anything else. And I'm going to say something else that's hard to say. I think it's Biden. A lot of it is Biden. We've talked a lot about, he does not come across as inspiring and strong. And we've seen poll after poll that he comes across as old. And I hate this because I think he's a good man and I think he's been an effective president. But for whatever the reason, in this telegenic world we live in, I don't think he's inspiring. I think it's hurting the brand. He's our guy. We're going to get behind him. But that's my honest answer.
And Richard, a really important issue as you look at that poll is immigration. And I think it appears yesterday, at least, the Biden administration with a couple of new things, the announcement that they are going to allow up to 20 new miles of Donald Trump's border wall to be completed. They say they have to do that legally for budget reasons, not their choice. Also that they're going to deport Venezuelan migrants as well. Waking up to the fact that the crisis at the border is not some pet Fox News issue, that it's impacting everybody in this country. And he's hearing it. The president is from the mayor of New York City, very vocally in the last few days, from the governor of Illinois, both Democrats, that this is a real problem that is affecting their towns.
Yeah, the administration has been so out of step with the country on this and so slow to realize that this is a major problem. And it is not just Fox. It is across the country. And as you say, Democrats are pushing back because they have to govern. And this is not an abstraction now. But the administration policy really, yes, they've made some small steps, more wall. We're going to deport some people, but it's truly incoherent. You just let in 480,000 Venezuelans and put them on temporary protected status. So now you're going to start sending them back. But how many? If you have temporary protected status, that means people can can work. That's still a magnet to come here. Look, the administration can't quite decide what its immigration policy is. And what worries me, besides that it's overwhelming cities and the politics of this, it's discrediting immigration. This is a country that immigration has been part of our story, part of our greatness. And what this is doing is raising across the political spectrum the sense that immigration is illegitimate. It's illegal. We have got to get to the point where we control our borders, but we have a large legal immigration program for people who need to come here for humanitarian reasons. We also need it for economic reasons. This is the administration is still, it's one step in the right direction. They got a long ways to go.
So, John, were these two moves, which, as Richard said, really just affect on the margins, the crisis that's happening there, are these a first acknowledgement, at least, from the Biden administration about the extent of the problem at the border?
There's been it's been fits and starts. Of course, when the Trump era pandemic asylum restriction ended, the White House fought to keep that in place, and then that lifted. Now we have this. But there is a growing knowledge, though, of the political problem here. I think what happened this week that was interesting, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, has been complaining about this for a while. The White House has largely dismissed him because he seeks attention and such. But Governor Pritzker of Illinois, his words seem to carry more weight. He's a close Biden ally. He also, Chicago in Illinois is hosting the convention next year. We've got some reporting from Julia Ainsley from Chicago that we're going to show later in the show about how the migrant issue has become really an issue. And Joe, the poll reflects it there, that this is something that Americans are concerned about. And it's partially in big blue cities, Democratic strongholds, the kind of places where this president is going to need to turn out as many voters as possible next year.
Right. We've heard about immigration and border security being an issue in 2018. It ended up not being an issue. We heard it in 2020 and 2022. Ended up not being an issue. I don't know if it's going to be a political issue in 2024. I do know that a lot of Americans like me have been concerned about it for a long time, and concerned about it not because I'm anti-immigrant. I agree with Ronald Reagan. We are a nation of immigrants. Immigrants make us vital. They need to come here legally. And we saw with Barack Obama at the end of Barack Obama's term, the lowest number of illegal border crossings in 50 years. Things have gotten worse since then, and they continue to get worse year after year after year. And so what I want to understand, though, Peter Baker, is explain to me the dynamics of why the White House keeps falling over themselves on this issue. Why are they, as Richard says, they seem to be hung up. They don't exactly know which way to go. Why can't they put somebody in charge and say the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop the massive flow of immigrants coming into the United States. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure there are officials that process this. The next thing we're going to do is really work aggressively towards raising the limits of legal immigrants. Why can't they have that sort of approach?
Yeah, I mean, look, what you see is obviously a stutter-step approach. I think John Lemire just said it right. I mean, sometimes it's fitful. Secretary Blinken right now is in Mexico talking to the government there. You see these moves in terms of the wall, in terms of Venezuelans. But it doesn't have the sense of urgency in this White House. You don't hear the president talk about this. You don't hear his top aides talk about this on a regular basis. It's not an issue that commands their attention like Ukraine or others that they focus on. And I think part of that is the hangover from the Trump era, which is not an era that's necessarily over, in which immigration has been inflamed. It has been turned into such a divisive issue. And that's something that Biden hates. I think he hates what he thinks Donald Trump did to immigration, turning it into an us versus them issue, playing off of racial animus, and therefore any move that seems to restrict immigration, right, illegal immigration, becomes tarnished by that brush in that sense. And so I think they struggle to find, a rational approach that doesn't seem to play into what they believe are racist stereotypes.